Hi, and welcome to Beyond the Storm with Selena. Today I have an amazing guest that's come to sit down with us and talk. Steffi Bailey from Steffi You're Not Alone. She has a huge online presence. Steffi comes to us unapologetic. She has had a story of resilience working with her son through his active addiction. Steffi's online presence is an amazing community. She calls it her tribe, and I am so excited to welcome her here today. And Steffi, we talked about the intro, but I didn't. I just winged it today. So thank you for being
Hey, I
here.
loved it. That's what I do all the time, flying by the seat of my pants. That's my
Right,
introduction. Yep.
right. So,
A lot of
in all
times we
fairness,
learn to do that naturally.
yeah, absolutely. And in all fairness, Steffi and I have bonded over a friendship, dealing with her son's active addiction and then losing my son. And Steffi has been a creator that came on the scene in my early days of TikTok. And I feel like I owe her a lot. She took me in under her wing and gave me lots of great advice. So to have her sit down with me today, it feels great to sit down with this energy because Steffi, she will tell you she is a girl's girl. She's not for everybody, but you know what? She's for a lot of us, and we appreciate having you here.
Thank you
So,
so much.
yeah, no problems. So, Steffi, tell us for people who are just finding out about you, people that maybe come across my podcast and they've never heard you, but they're liking what we're saying so far. Tell me a little bit about you. What brought you to TikTok?
So originally, I am a pet lover and grooming was my thing. So I wanted to share and teach the world um, that you can do some of the grooming at home and I love pets and I love animals and that's what brought me here. And but through what I was going home, what was happening in my private life was what I never shared publicly. Some of my close friends knew, some of our family members knew that my youngest son, Nehemiah, was struggling with drugs. Um, when it first came to my attention, I was like, oh, it's a stage. He'll outgrow it. It's just, I'm Gen X. I didn't know about a lot of stuff that I know about now. Like I didn't know what fentanyl was. I didn't know. I'd heard of heroin. I mean, I think we all have. So what ended up happening was the drugs came in our life without my permission. Addiction wrapped its arms around my son, and slowly but surely, I watched this child of mine just disappearing, and I could not get a hold of him, no matter what I did. Bring him home, uh, chase him. It didn't matter. It was the drugs. Addiction was winning. Addiction was winning. And this one particular night, we had sent him to a rehab, and rehab at that point for me was like, he's going to rehab. This is it. This is the answer. He's going to be all fixed when he comes out.
We
And
all
for a
feel
year,
that
he
way.
was sober. And for a year, he was sober. So I think, looking hindsight is 2020, but so, anyways, but it was a year after that he got his own place, and we would take him to work. And this particular night, we had to do a welfare check. And seeing your child without breath in their body, with fentanyl all in his lap, folded unnaturally in half like a lawn chair. More so than, I mean, it was just, and I remember running into the street screaming, God, take me. God, I could just remember the Bible talks about there's no greater love than a man to give down his life. And I was like, take me. Put, by the grace of God,
Wow.
they brought him back. I knew at that point my son could never live in my home again, although he was not, no, but I would have not survived that had it been in my house. And from there it went, he lost his apartment, then he was living in someone's garage, then he became homeless. Now again, I still kept connection with him. He just couldn't live at home. Then he went missing. And that's where I went to TikTok. That's how my platform began. I was like, well, I've got 500 followers. I've got 300. I don't know how. And I said, I'm just going to tell, because I'd seen other people do it. TikTok, find my son. That video blew up. It went viral. I think it had like 800 and something thousand people looking. In 2 days, TikTok found my son.
Don't you think that's
And at that
because
point,
so many people resonated with that cry of a mother saying, "Help me"?
yeah, that's exactly what it was. And when I found him, I realized in that moment, girl, you better buckle up because what you're in for, you are not prepared for. You are not prepared for. And because so many people showed up and because I have a big mouth, I thought I can't be the only one. So many people responded to that video that I thought, oh my, oh my, like there is, oh, okay. And then I just started talking about it. And it wasn't the way I talk about it now because I wasn't the same person I was then. 2 years,
Right.
3 years later, I'm a different person now because of what this journey has taken me through.
The education, lived experience.
Lived experience is such a powerful, often, and I'll die on this hill. You cannot go to college. They can't teach you what I've learned. They can't teach you. It's not in a book. It's not in a book. Although I will say this, what I've learned is in not giving a shout out, but giving a shout out Brandy Mack in her book and the way because you and I both experienced the
Yeah,
love of what she was doing. And she was,
yeah.
I don't want to say a starter for us, but that's where we both got
Oh
permission
no,
to
no, that is the first
100%,
person
right? So it's
the
like,
first person I had ever heard talk that way, and I was
yeah,
mesmerized because she was speaking the
yeah,
stuff that I was embarrassed and ashamed to share with even my closest friends. So yeah,
correct. Same. And that was me too. So in that you can't learn. So I'm really grateful that she actually wrote a book, but you and I are behind her yelling, yeah, scream it louder, because that's exactly what I've learned is that disconnection drives them. And Nehemiah just said this on the video he did when my son was in the video with me. And he said, what happens is when you cut people off, basically it drives them in further into despair. It just causes more problems. It's not about giving them money, or it's just saying, I love you. I'm here when you're ready. Or you want to talk? Do you need someone to listen to you?
yeah, humanizing. Yeah, just the
Correct. And that was the
humanizing.
other thing, Selena. That's such a great way to say it. Nehemiah said, they see me for more than an addict at the house where he's at. I'm not just an addict. I'm a human being.
Yeah, that's powerful. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think we have stigmatized addiction in such a way that it drove families into the shadows of shame. And so when you find that you're in a home that addiction is running rampant, you where do you go? There was no online course. There was no support group in your local town. So we gravitated towards online, and you know, we you and I both came across Brandy Mack and some other creators,
hmm
but that's,
hmm
that's
Because
exactly
everything
where we
else
found
screams
our
tough
support.
love.
Yes.
Yeah, and everyone else is
Yes.
screaming tough love. Cut them off. Let them hit rock bottom. Everybody else is screaming that bullshit. And while we're watching mothers, as yourself, burying their children, and you better be willing, and I've said this, Lena, you know this, you better fucking be willing to live with telling someone, let your child hit rock bottom, and then watch that mother bury her child, because that's what rock bottom looks like. It's not what rock bottom used to look like. It's what rock bottom looks like now. It has a different definition than it did.
I actually had that conversation with law enforcement in my community, an officer that just was like, he was jaded, he was fed up, he was tired of it all, and the rock bottom bullshit concept he kept throwing at me. So the afternoon that he passed away, I paid a visit to the police department, and I got in the face of that officer and said, "That's what your tough
Mm,
love does." And it wasn't a
mm,
very pretty moment, but they did. They seen me as a grieving mom. They allowed me to have my fit in the police department. But for my healing process, I had to go and stand in the face of somebody who dared to tell me tough love, and the ultimate fear came. I wanted them to have that impact so he would never say that again to another mother. I wanted him
And
to have my soul.
how many more mothers have to be told, let them hit rock bottom before it's enough?
Yeah, rock bottom is
How
filling up
many
our
more
womb and
it's disgusting. It's disgusting to me. I mean, it is one of the things that I just, if I ever get, I just, yeah. And I was speaking to a mom that has lost her child, and we were talking. I know you've experienced this as well. It's bad enough that when our children are alive and we're dealing with the stigma, number one, we're judged as parents. Somehow it's our fault. We weren't strong enough. We weren't strict enough. Or there had to be something that it's all, somehow it's our fault.
we enabled them, or we were codependent. We've heard
Correct.
it all. We've
Correct.
heard it all.
We're blamed for it, right? Somehow it's our fault. Secondly, then the child that is suffering from the addiction is stigmatized. They're less than a human. They're not good enough. This is a choice. It's not all of the nonsense. And so it's a double whammy. But then what people don't want to talk about, that is the most disgusting thing I think that I've ever, it's disgusting that people, when they lose the loved one, that their grief is somehow lessened. Their grief is somehow lessened because that person that they loved died from addiction. I have seen the most horrific, and I've heard the most horrific. I just spoke to another mom at Battlefield that was talking about this, and that she was said, well, it's not like our kid, not like you didn't expect it to happen. How dare you? Like, and these are people saying this to somebody that has lost their child. But if the child had died from something else, they would be supported and loved and cared for.
So I say, I've had people tell me, well, he's no longer in pain, or, God had
Mm,
a different plan for him. I've had all of that said to me. And in transparency, Stephen passed away 10 months ago. And
mm,
I have often said the difference between a child that dies of a drug addiction, overdose, or anything related to that versus a natural death, a normal death, a car accident, illness, whatever, is the casseroles that will be brought to the home and the families
mm,
that will be supported, and the
mm.
even the churches, they'll jump in, they'll bring families the food, they'll do all of that. But when it's addiction, it's just this uncomfortableness that nobody knows what to say, nobody knows what to do. How do they show up? You just fucking show up.
Yeah.
And that's I'm going to say that from scream it from
Hmm.
the rooftop. You just show up. You don't have to say anything. Just show up.
And I want to say this when it comes to those three things, the stigmas in life, afterlife, and us as parents. We are more as parents for the first stigma because we get judged. We are more than the disease our children suffer with or the people you love with. Number two, our children and the people that we love are not the sum of their addiction. And in death, their addiction does not define them. They were still loved. They were still a family member. They were still a brother. They were still a sister. They were still a mother. They were still a father. They were still an aunt. They were still an uncle. And that's the conversations that people don't want to have. So in the
Correct.
event anybody sees this, please just fucking let me make it clear for you. Just say their name because that's who they were. It's the first thing they lose to addiction is their name. Please, when
Yep.
you're dealing with my friend here, Selena, say Steven's name. When you're talking with my friend Jenna, say Bam's name. That is the
Yes.
biggest way we can honor them. I'm sorry you lost Steven. I'm sorry you lost Bam. Give them
Yeah.
the love and the respect and honor them by saying their name because it is absolutely the first thing that is taken from them when they fall into the disease of addiction. And when addiction wraps their arms around them, it takes everything from them. But the one thing they still deserve to have is their name because they are not the sum of that addiction.
Absolutely. And I have often said, I've said in several of my videos that it's a safe place to ask a mother who's lost a child to anything, but especially addiction. Tell me about your loved one. What was his favorite
Mm,
hobby, whatever. Just
mm,
find something positive to ask them because that's a safe place for a parent who's
mm-hmm,
grieving. We always want to
mm-hmm.
share a story about our child. So,
Hmm.
and I
I
always,
love that.
yeah, I always say that's a safe place for me to spend my time too. If you come in and want to
Hmm.
talk to me about my son's addiction, that's not always a safe place for me to be. But ask
No,
me
and you
about
lived
something.
there long enough. You lived there long enough, and it keeps with the. He was so more. He was so much more than that, right?
Yeah,
One of the things
absolutely.
I've loved that you shared, and my experience in getting to know Stephen since he's passed. I did not know Stephen prior, but in getting to know him, one of the things I love about him, and I've said this to you privately, is that him and I would have got along fucking great because he was a smart ass. And what I
Well,
loved and I love that you're able to bring that to life. And that's how you help people grieve is you
yeah,
take moments to get to know those people that they've lost through their eyes. And you've done that beautifully being able to
thank
share
you.
him with the world.
And I have to tell you, you spoke about Jenna and Bam just a second ago.
Mm,
She was probably one of the first creators that you shared her with me,
yeah.
and
Hmm.
I went directly to her. Just the way that Jenna was always able to be um, vulnerable with her message,
Hmm.
share
Hmm.
us the story of Bam, and
Hmm.
the connection that she had between her story and people listening to her story.
Hmm.
I I have sat and cried with Jenna many a nights, and she
Hmm.
probably doesn't know that, but I mean she might.
Hmm.
But I have to look at her content and say she has been a a stepping stone in the journey of recovery for grief because she
Hmm.
helps me through it in days that I'm struggling. So
Hmm.
when I think of each one of these different content creators that we encounter because we have the
Hmm.
same common story of
Hmm.
addiction, there's so many of us that are out there that are genuinely trying to help the other mother, the other father, aunt, uncle in these situations.
Hmm.
You being the one that I have gravitated to the most because you didn't sugarcoat it. You were honest.
Hmm.
You were basically,
Hmm.
I'm a girl's girl and I'm going to tell you how it
Hmm.
is. And that has
Yes.
created you an online community that you call your tribe. Tell me about your
Yeah.
tribe.
We are fuck around and find out. That's how we roll. So a lot of people on social media deal with trolls. I don't have a whole lot because I'll bring them to front and center, and then I just listen. And I'm a firm believer. People say, "Oh, ignore the bullies in the room." That's what. Oop, I dropped you. Hold on. I'm falling apart over here, girl. Hold on. The I think the problem is that that's why we have bullies is because there we go. That's why we have bullies is because they're ignored and they're allowed to continue and go on to somebody that can't handle it. And I always think about that woman that just had her last, she just can't take another lick and then people are unaliving themselves. So for me, I've just
Yeah.
always been like, yeah, bring that shit. I have a great time with them. But the great thing about my tribe is that they really stand 10 feet down for me and they'll be like, oh, yeah, bring it. We're ready. So there's that. But the other thing is, I've really wanted to create a safe community for people, um, no matter where you are in the realm. I always say addiction has so many legs. No matter how addiction has affected your life, you're safe here. I get a lot of messages, so many messages that stories that I will never share that I will hold in a safe,
Yeah.
loving place for people that call themselves silent watchers and say thank you for not making me feel alone because I think the loneliness. So with my tribe, I think the one thing that's happened there is that we somehow found each other. I needed them as much as they needed me, and we don't feel so alone. And that was the purpose of when I realized who I had found. I was like, I needed to make sure everybody felt that way, that they're not alone, that they can reach out and there's no shame over here. I'll never judge you because we go through so many different things with this. There are things I have never experienced while Nehemiah's been in active addiction that other mothers have. There's other mothers that have experienced stuff that have not experienced stuff that maybe I've gone through. So for me, having a safe place just to be okay, man, that's sacred. That's like sacred territory, and it's safe. And we have a girl that I have not shared yet. I'm letting you know first. There's a lady by the name of Holly, and I do have permission. I texted her before I came on here. She reached out to me, and we got her all the way from Louisiana to a detox in Los Angeles. She has detoxed and as in treatment. So that's the kind of tribe we have. And she reached out to somebody that reached out to somebody that, so the whole thing is, and she now has my personal phone number. She's like, I'm so and so days clean, and she's going to make it back home to Louisiana to her daughter. And it's great. Like, it's absolutely, so it's not just a matter of just online connection. There's real life happening where it's this community, this tribe really shows up. The other thing they've done, unbelievable. When I have met people that are homeless, that need a tent, that need food, that need water, my Venmo will start filling up, and then I do the videos, and they know that they're taking part in going to feed the homeless, going to, put a tent over somebody. Helen, who's an older woman, Nehemiah was out there in the streets with her, and we were able to get her a tent and feminine products, and that's just from the people on TikTok. That's the
Yeah.
kind of tribe. They show up. They show up. I mean, it's not they just show up. So it's great. And it's just was super organic. But Selena, I do want to say this while we're talking. You said about me being so strong and whatnot. And I was actually going to do a video about it, but we can just make it part of this for you. One of
Okay.
the things I don't think you realize, and I have said this to you personally, Jenna, you, Marie, people that I have encountered that have lost their children. So often I get called strong. I don't know that I would ever survive Nehemiah's death. I don't know. I'd probably have to try to figure it out. I don't know. I don't ever, I never want to have to walk in your shoes. We've talked about that. But one of the things I'm so very grateful for is for you not leaving me behind, for you not leaving the rest of us mothers behind, because I don't know that I would be picking up the sword and carrying forward and marching forward, because I don't, especially so early on in your grief. That's amazing, that the amount of strength and willpower that you've shown to continue sharing Stephen with us in the world and stuff. My gratitude comes from a place that I never want to have to walk in your shoes. And thank you for fighting with me for Nehemiah. Thank you for the letters that you've written to him. Thank you for the donations that you made on his behalf to where he is now. And just thank you for standing shoulder to shoulder, because I don't know that I would have that kind of strength. And I would hope that I would be, but what an amazing example of humanity that you absolutely have blessed me personally with. And I'm forever grateful for that. And the same with Jenna. Jenna and I've had some really honest conversations. And so interesting how your journey was much like my journey with Nehemiah, with the law being involved and whatnot with Stephen. And then you ended up getting into, him not getting shot and whatnot. But for me, with Nehemiah, you were in the trenches, as you call it. I've been there. Jenna didn't have to go through that. And there's a part of me that's very grateful that she never had to endure. And her and
Yeah.
I actually had that conversation. She's like, I don't know that I could have survived that with Bam. And I'm like, yeah, you would have. You would have. But at the end of the day, she never had to go through that. But
Yeah.
she cheers Nehemiah on. She doesn't have Bam anymore. Anything. I could call Jenna tonight and she would sit with me if I needed her. And having that kind of support from moms
Yeah.
that have absolutely lost their children, that's a kind of love that I will always cherish and never take for granted, because you could be doing something else. I don't know that I could do it. So thank you for you. Thank you to Jenna and the people that I've experienced that have not left me behind.
All right. I'm not supposed to be the one getting teary-eyed, so
That's okay. No, it's
thank you
okay.
for loving me in the mess of what grief does. And I'll be
Hmm.
honest with you, I didn't know what I was doing in those early weeks. I had never been on TikTok. I came to TikTok wanting to tell my story because I had been in the trenches for so long and isolated and ashamed and embarrassed in my own community at
Mm.
what was happening right here. And I knew that I needed to talk to people further out than what was
Hmm.
sitting in my backyard. And bringing
Yeah.
my story was creating a place of vulnerability that I had never allowed myself to go to. I had worked as a
Mm.
safety professional. I was not going to let that cat out of the bag in my environment of where I worked at because I would have lost the confidence of where I was working. And
Wow.
there was something about losing my son that stripped me so raw that I said,
Mm.
I woke up in the middle of the night within a week of Stephen passing and jumped out of bed and I said, oh, fuck them all. Fuck them all. I'm going to tell my
Mm-hmm.
story. And
Mm-hmm.
I was driven with a desire to want to help the moms that were just like me, silenced and shamed and stigmatized and weaponized. I thought, I don't have anything to lose. I've eaten enough
Right.
shit sandwiches. I've eaten enough shit sandwiches through addiction.
Yeah.
What the
Mm-hmm.
fuck do I got to lose? I have
Yeah.
nothing left to lose. And
Yeah.
I I made some stupid videos in the beginning because I didn't know what I was doing. I connected and made wrong connections in the beginning because I was just gravitating to anywhere that I could put
Mm-hmm.
my story out there. And
Yep.
somehow I
And we talked
found
about
some.
that in the beginning. We
Yes,
talked about that in
yes,
the
you
beginning.
did.
Yep.
You did. And I trusted your opinion and I went a direction that didn't harm me, but it didn't help me and made lefts and rights. And somehow I have navigated my way through this to a podcast, to advocating
Yeah.
publicly, going to public speaking engagements. And
Yeah.
that community that you and I have bonded over, um, you've just recently um, wrote a book, you've released a book, and
Mm-hmm.
those are all things that all of us bring stories and we turn it into TikTok videos, books. We
Yeah.
share as much as we can with ourselves so that those mamas sitting at home that have nobody else to talk to, they can watch this
Yep.
content, they can share their grief with us or their aggravation and frustration of what their child is putting them through or what their child
Mm-hmm.
is suffering through and
Mm-hmm.
and for that, there's this following, and in your following, my gosh, girl, I got to go this one round before we start talking about your book.
Okay.
You have a community of people that expect Steffi to show up with the foul language, with the straight facts. So tell me about, because I just watched your video today about
Yeah.
your language,
Yeah.
and I've already thrown the F-bomb 4 or 5 times, so I don't
Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I want you to talk to me about you have the people that just come to you because you are straightforward with your language, and the other ones that are just
Yeah.
wasting their time telling you that they don't like it.
I'm old. I don't listen. It took me too fucking long to get here. And I gave an example of this last night. I was at a dinner meeting with a whole bunch of moms last night that are from Battlefield Addiction, where my son was blessed to get into the recovery house. I don't know these women, but I'm always going to show up as me. One of the things about me, I think, and my whole life, you look at your life, and we've always been all of us. It doesn't matter who you are. You're trying to fit in, trying to make friends. You're trying to do this. Be nice. Don't do this. There's so many fucking rules. And I just think that it was like somehow through all of this, I was just like, fuck it. This is who I am because behind closed doors, when me and God are having a conversation, I always say this. I'm not religious, but I love Jesus. And it is a two-way conversation. And you can't get me into fucking heaven. But me and Jesus have to work that shit out. When I got him on the main line, I talk to him the same way. Why the fuck did that happen today, God? Like, I just don't. But he knows my thoughts before. So for people to lecture me about that, God already knew. So I don't know. You can't change me. But again, I had this meeting last night. I had this dinner. And I don't know these women. It's the first time I'm ever sitting down with them. I got an hour. And somebody asked me a question about not, it came about triggering and how do I pussyfoot around Nehemiah not to trigger him? No, I don't give a fuck. If I trigger you, I trigger you. But I'm working on that. There's a way to handle certain things, right? But we're just talking about this. And I was like, I started explaining myself and I said, fuck. And I said, everybody. I don't know. There was like 10 of us. Women I've seen, don't know. I said, listen, I cuss a lot. And I'm so sorry. I apologize if I offend anybody, but it ain't going to change. So that's just it. Like, this is who I am. And now, don't get me wrong. If you take me to church and I go with you, I'm not cussing. If I go, I know how to behave. But on my time, my dime, this is how I am. And I don't know. I just am who I am. And I think I'm finally comfortable in my own skin. And I think because of the journey I had to go through with Nehemiah, it strips you to the raw essence of who you are, and none of that other shit fucking matters anymore. And it's just like, you know what? Love me, like me, or hate me, but just get the fuck out of my way because I got
Right,
shit I got to do. And
right,
one of them is keeping my kid alive right now. You know, one
right.
of the things they come at me for my lashes, or they come at me, they rather me wear my hair down, or they rather me do your lashes. Fuck you. I'm good. Like I am who I am to the core. And I, my physical appearance, this is what I tell people all the time. If the only fault you can find with me is the way I look, like it, love it, or hate it, I'm killing it in the human race game over here. I am a loving human being that cares about the well-being of other people. I am fighting for people that don't have a voice, that are out there in the streets that didn't eat today, that are homeless, whether it's mental addiction, whether it's addiction. I'll sit down on the curb, I'll buy a pizza, or I'll bring bologna sandwiches. I don't judge them. I hug them. I love on them because I don't know the last time somebody even said that they matter. I will. I'm killing it in the human race game, and we need more people out there doing that, worried about how they look or how I look or how. If that's what your main concern is, how I look, you're not my type of people anyways. Because I got bigger shit on my plate. Like I said, we got a whole camp out here outside my shop just down the road. I'll go to McDonald's in the morning and I'll load up on burritos and just hand them out and the only way they get one is if I get a hug. Because I need one too. And I've had some of the best hugs from out there. The other side of that is my homeless community out here will protect Steffi. They call me Mama Steffi out there, but they will protect me at all costs. And they know I'm Nehemiah's mom. They are literally the most
Mhm.
respectful people. Aren't you scared? Scared of what? They're humans.
They're
So
humans.
anyways, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but yeah, so I'm really at my age when you get to be here and you've lost as much and been stripped back as far as you can be. I don't care.
Yeah, yeah.
What's important becomes your whole visual of the way the world looks completely changes.
Well, and I often say, I've said it before, I've eaten enough shit sandwiches. I'm not eating any more shit sandwiches, you know? And I
Yeah.
think that's what
No, I'm
happens when
not.
you reach a level of putting up with enough crap
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
you immediately recognize it and cut it down. Nope, nope, not here, not happening here.
Well, and the
My
other
next,
thing I think that I love that I learned it from John, who's my oldest son, and I just want to just touch on this for a second. One of the things about John, my oldest, he's not confrontational, but he won't back down. And what I love about him, there was something that happened in our family, and I won't get into the details of that, but there was something that happened or whatever, and he just didn't respond. And what I loved about that is his response was a response. And
absolutely.
he really is about protecting his children. And I've learned a lot from John. And realistically, I really have. I mean, I'm still going to be who I am, and I'm still going to. But he really has, and I've often said this, been my hero in my life more times than he probably ever had to be, or that I even knew. But with John, there's been some real teachable moments, and it's been through this whole thing of addiction too. Not with him because he's never had any disease of addiction or had to battle that kind of stuff, but just to see where he is in his life and how it really had to make me look at he really knows who he is. And I was like, how the fuck do I not even know who I am at my age and he's younger than me? And really just kind of dig in and be like, okay. But yeah, he really has been through a lot of this, almost like a quiet teacher for me.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing to be able to
Yeah.
have that kind of respect for your own son.
Yeah.
Usually we don't stop and take a look at what we're learning from our children, but so how insightful that you're
Yeah.
able to do that.
Yeah.
My next question for you is, as a mother who's dealing with active addiction, your son's working through his recovery program, you've been through the ringer. So what do you do to keep yourself from being burnt out? What do you do to replenish yourself, and keep meeting the demands of the people that are watching you and following you on TikTok? What do you do for that?
Wow. So TikTok is actually, and I'll address that first. TikTok is actually a real, I get a lot out of the videos that I make as well because I know I've always been a fixer by nature and a helper. So I think by sharing, knowing when you see those comments where I actually get, it actually feeds my soul. So that actually, weirdly enough, when I'm actually able to make a video that gets a little bit of traction, not for the sake of the views, but for the sake of the people that they're like, wow, that was really insightful, or oh, I needed to hear that today. Or I did a couple goofy videos. They were like, this and that. Just for me, that really helps me get out, get out of my funk. And I think, and I've said this before, helping somebody else during the hardest times of my life has always made my life better, and it just helps me heal. Um,
Yeah.
and then there was a time where I was in the bed, don't get me wrong, and I was rotting in that bed. I didn't want to get out of the bed. I didn't want to see anybody. I didn't want to do anything. I was depressed and I was having anxiety every morning at 2 o'clock. Between 1:45 and 2 o'clock, I woke up every night. And I didn't know how to manage any of that. I had to get help with that, professional help, and really learn breathing techniques. And I really had to dive into some other stuff. And um, so getting professional help when I needed to, I had to do that. I absolutely had to do that. But I have always been, I feel better when I'm doing for other people. It just, and still that goes back to into my counseling. They said that's because nobody ever did for you.
Probably.
It's still part of my trauma that I'm working through. Um,
Sure.
I've also learned how to say no. I have also learned how to say no. And if I can just share something today, an example that happened today with Nehemiah, who's in recovery. Nehemiah and Cheyenne, his ex, but the mother of his children, he got me on the phone today and started talking about the children. And well, if you could call Cheyenne and you could, absolutely not, because I've always been the negotiator to help with the kids and make the arrangements. I said, I am not the parent. I'm the grandparent. Call Cheyenne and figure that shit out. They ain't got nothing to do with me. And I told Cheyenne the same
Good for
thing. Stop
you.
putting me in the middle of that shit. And it was the
Good for
first
you.
time that I told them both, I don't want to be part of this. No.
I
And I
love
don't
it.
feel
I
bad
love
about
it.
it.
I love
So
it.
learning to say no and making it a full sentence. Learning to say no was hard because I was a people pleaser, not so much now, but learning to say no was the first step in self-care. True self-care for me came when I learned to say no. Then I had to learn to say no without guilt. Then I had to fucking learn to say no as a complete sentence and not have this. Now I have to explain myself. We all do that. We say no and then we want to explain why. You don't owe anybody a fucking explanation. You say no because you said no. I don't.
Right?
And that is, if you want to explain, it's a courtesy. I was not explaining as a courtesy. I was explaining because I don't want you not to like me or be mad at me. I would say no, and then I'd be, they're going to be mad. They're going to be, I
Yeah.
immediately would go back into fixer mode, right? So I don't anymore. If I tell you no, I fucking mean it. No. And today was
Yeah.
one of those days. No, I'm not doing that shit. Figure it out. You got her number, call her. I'm not, they're not my kids.
I feel a little bit, I'm going to be cliche here, but, Travis Kelsey and Taylor Swift's interview not too long ago, I think it was a week ago, one of the statements that she made is that we need to start looking at our time as value. And some people just can't afford our time. Our time is a luxury. Our
Mm-hmm,
emotional state of mind is a luxury, and some people just can't
mm-hmm,
afford it. And I don't want to
Hmm.
be cliche, but when she said that, I so related it to how we, as parents who have, dealing with active addiction, or if you're dealing from grief due to what
Hmm.
addiction has done, our time, our peace of mind, our energy is a
Hmm.
luxury at this point because it's been taken for
Hmm.
granted for so long that
Hmm.
when we finally own it again, no, motherfucker,
Hmm.
you don't get to come to the table and eat for free anymore. You
Hmm.
have you have to bring something to the table because I'm not feeding
Hmm.
everybody anymore.
No, and one of the things that has been said to me many times now with Nehemiah, when he gets out, when he's done, would you, once he's doing good again, would you let him move back home? Fuck no. You know how much I love my peace? I, I say that with my full chest. Nehemiah is 29 years old. That boy needs to learn how to get his own place, pay his own bills, do his own thing. Nehemiah can never, yeah, no, no, no. You can't come back here. I'm so grateful to Battlefield because they have a program. So when he's done with the 90 days, then he can start a job. Then he goes into a housing program that he can pay his own rent when they have roommates, whatever, whatever. But figure it out. And if you can't, that's a problem at your age. Then we need to figure out some
Right.
others. But I'm not doing that. And so Nehemiah, but I actually was preparing part of a video that I was doing. Everybody's journey looks so very different, and everybody's no's and yeses can look very, very different. And so Brandy Mack had asked the question about, does God ever talk to you? And I kind of had responded to it. And I'm saying this to say this. God had told her to let Brooke come home in active addiction. God didn't tell me that shit. God told Brandy that shit. God never said, bring that boy home in active addiction. What God told me was to get out of the way, and I did. But both of us listened, and we got the same result. And so it's kind of
Absolutely.
like I say this to know that every journey is so different. Wasn't no fucking way in the world I was bringing Nehemiah home in active addiction. And but that was not for me. That was for her. And what I love about that is though, but the message, the same message you're saying, the same message I'm saying, the same message she's saying, the same message that now is coming to the forefront finally is that, but no matter how we did it, none of us lost connection.
Absolutely. And I'm going to say this. We've all talked about the different paths to recovery. Not every path is the same. Everybody's path
Mm-hmm.
is different. There's different
Mm-hmm.
layers of trauma that brought them to that point. So there's not
Mm-hmm.
one answer to the path of recovery. And I
No.
agree with you. I had Stephen in my home during active addiction for a period of time, and that was disastrous. And
Mm-hmm.
and
Same.
when you're talking about loving somebody and your phrase, loving them from across the street, to
Mm-hmm.
me, that was never tough love. That was love with boundaries. And
Correct.
I had never heard the phrase until I met you, but I was like, oh my God, that's what I've been doing. I've been loving him from across the street because I
Mm-hmm.
still was showing up. I was still checking up. I was still making
Mm-hmm.
sure he knew
Yeah.
I was engaged. And
Mm-hmm.
as we are navigating those journeys through recovery with our children or
Mm-hmm.
walking with them through active addiction, we have to have those conversations that just because this person, your cousin, got sober or got clean doing it this way doesn't mean that's your only way. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, we're online looking at people that have had success with recovery. If something in that path talks to you, explore it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
if
Yeah.
something that
That's
somebody
powerful.
else
Yeah.
if somebody else is doing something that doesn't speak to you, that is not your journey. But
Correct.
don't
Correct.
disrespect them for their journey, you
Correct.
know?
And that's the argument that's happening in the recovery world. And
Yes.
our position is called soft. It is called we're babying them and we're whatever, whatever. Well, listen, if it works, it works. I don't give a fuck what you call it. If it works, it works. If there is no denying that Miss Brooke, Brandy's daughter, is sober and in love with her newborn baby and being a mother to both of her children and healing her relationship with her family, and that is something to be so celebrated,
Yeah.
not to be
Yeah.
looked down on. And the same with
Right.
Nehemiah. He's gone a different way, and he's in a recovery, a sober living environment with a program, but it's not the AA program. It's a
Right.
totally different type of program, and he loves it. It's working for him. But this
Well, and we
argument, that there's only one way to recovery needs to stop. It's got to stop. Stop using those old terminologies, tough love. I never
No,
cut Nehemiah off. And where loving
no,
him from across the street came from, I always tell people I see things differently. Like in my brain, the way my brain works, and then I say it, but some of it sticks. And so where loving him from across the street came from was Nehemiah ended up in the clink. What I mean by the clink for all of you watching is jail. I call it the clink. I don't know why, but I call it the clink. Anyway, so Nehemiah was in jail, and I don't do jail. I don't do jail phone calls. You ain't calling me for bail. You need to call fucking Ghostbusters, homeboy. If you get put in the clink, what you calling me for? That's a waste of your dime because I can't help you. But I've told my children that from the time they were young. Anyway, Nehemiah got word to me that he needed glasses, and Nehemiah is medically blind. So he's legally blind without his glasses. So I have the prescription, so I had to get him glasses, and then I dropped them off and got him the glasses. Called an enabler. That's not enabling. That's a medical
no,
need. Not a big
no.
deal.
That's an item
But
of
when
dignity.
Nehemiah
You
came,
need to be able to see.
and safety, right? Like, I mean, it's a
Yeah,
medical need, and people are, yeah, they can fuck off. Anyway, so when Nehemiah came out, I was willing to have a conversation with him about, hey, are you ready to go? And what Nehemiah did is he dipped. He took off right out of jail and got himself involved in stuff that I won't say on here, but he was doing shit that he had no business doing that was against the law. And I didn't learn to keep my hands to myself when it came to my kids, so I probably would have ended up going to jail. And I realized in that moment that I had to just go over here. So what I did was I found him because when it came to boundaries and things changing in our relationship, I've always done this with my kids since they were young. I'm now changing. This is now changing for me. I looked him dead in his face, told him what I had to say about it. I was like, I'm not coming back out here. I ain't coming to look for you. I'm going to be at home. Home will never change. My phone number's still the same. In the event that you feel like you need to detox and you might want to go to treatment, let me know. I'll help you out. But I was no longer going to pound the pavement, but I surely was not going to put myself in a situation I thought that I could end up in the clink because I'm not breaking the law. I'm not getting involved with the law. I'm a law-abiding person. I'm not doing all that shit. You want to do that? That's on you, homeboy, and you're going to have the consequences of that. So,
your
with that being
boundary,
said,
your boundary. Hmm.
yeah, it was my boundaries. And so I said, now I'm going to love you from across the street. It was the first time in my life that I ever saw Nehemiah's heart break right in front of me. That boy's spirit just said crack. And I looked at him and I was like, I love you. I got to go. And I turned my happy ass and I walked away. And I remember feeling this sense of relief. But this goes back to when I was here at the grooming shop where I'm at right now. It was like God was I was doing a cat and I heard God say, girl, get out of the way. And I've shared that with everybody on my platform, but I knew what it meant. I just had to get out of the way. And then it was like, okay, he's over there and I'm over here. I'm loving him from across the street. So that's where that came from. And it really resonated with a lot of people. Instead of saying tough love, you're just stepping back. You're not disconnecting. You're just loving them from over here. You're not loving them. But it felt like a betrayal. It felt like when you set boundaries, you're going to feel like you're betraying them
Yeah.
and you're betraying, especially as a mother, love. You'll hear me talk a lot about this. Love and logic do not get along, but they live in the same heart.
Oh yeah, that's powerful too. And I say
Yeah.
right along that same theory, a mother's heart is designed and wired to love and protect their child. It is totally against the nature of a mother to watch her child suffer and not do whatever you
Mm,
can to help protect them or help them
mm-hmm,
thrive. I have
mm-hmm.
said over and over again when I was being claimed as, accused of being an enabler, and I said, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
I would say, no, I'm not an enabler. I'm a mother trying to keep my
Mm-hmm,
son alive. All I'm trying to do
mm,
is keep him
yeah.
alive. Don't put a
Mm-hmm,
label on it. If
mm-hmm.
if taking him to a doctor's appointment is enabling, I don't give a fuck what you want to call it. If
Yeah. He's
taking him
alive
something
today.
to
He's
eat,
alive
yeah,
today. Yeah.
if taking
Yeah.
him
And
something
that's
to
it.
eat, yeah, I just want to take him something to eat. Maybe not necessarily to feed him, but to put my eyes on him, to see
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
exactly where he's at, to see if he's okay, to
mm-hmm,
see how far down he has slid, or if I have a
mm-hmm,
moment of quiet peacefulness with him, that
Mm-hmm.
in his active addiction, I can have a moment of a good
Mm-hmm.
conversation, because there's not a whole lot of good
Mm-hmm.
conversations during active addiction when you're dealing with somebody in
No,
psychosis, you know?
no, that was like that night, and you know about this night. I was sitting with Nehemiah. I used to go and I would look for him and just have Gatorade or whatever. And it was in the evening, and he got in my car, and he was just sitting there, and he was looking at me. I was like, "Hey, you good?" And he put his hand on my lap, and that boy looked me dead in my face and said, "I'm gonna die out here." And it was the first time that I had realized I needed to learn to listen and not listen to respond. I didn't respond. I just sat. I knew the importance of sitting in that moment, in that realization, because they don't have a lot of moments of clarity. That was a clear moment, and I didn't want to get in the way of that. And
Yeah, he
I had
needed to
started
deal with it.
practicing, yeah, and I had started practicing learning how to listen instead of learning how to listen to always have a response or a lecture or whatever. I would just listen. But when that came out of his mouth, my first instinct was like, don't ever say something like that again. Your family, and just go into the like, we love you. You can't talk like.
Yeah.
I didn't. I
Don't speak
sat
that
with
into
him.
the universe. Yeah.
Yeah, that. And I sat there. And it took me about 5 minutes. It seemed like 5 minutes, might have been a little bit shorter. And I looked at him. I said, yep, you probably will. Because that was just us standing in truth together. And he said, I love you, Mom. And I said, I love you too, son. And that was it. That was a complete moment and sentence, because when they're in psychosis, you don't get a lot of moments of clarity. But he knew what he was facing. He knew. He knew. He knew. And I was like, wow, this thing really has a hold of him. Yeah, I'll never forget that night.
I love that story. That
Hmm.
I flashed a moment of something similar. When Stephen went to the hospital, unresponsive, he was in and out of consciousness before they intubated him. The the anesthesiologist that was going to intubate him, he was fighting them on being intubated. He was, he was in and out of consciousness, so he's, not making good sense. But when I got there to the hospital, the anesthesiologist said, "Your son fought to say something, and I want to share this with you." And
Mm,
she said he said it took a lot, labored breathing. It took a lot for him to say this. My mom's coming,
mm,
and um, my mom is super mom, and don't fuck with her. Those
mm,
were those were his last spoken words to anybody before he was intubated. And
mm,
I was so grateful that that person was still on duty, was still there, that came and spoke that
mm,
to me, because my son in psychosis wouldn't have said that. My son would have said something crazy about his mother,
mm,
but he had nicknamed me Supermom for all of the
mm,
times I had shown up. So her not
mm,
knowing that, but being able to relay that to me, So for
mm,
you to sit there and share that same story, similar
mm.
story about
Well,
them
and the thing
being
about it is
not in
to
psychosis,
honor
but
him.
connecting. Yeah,
What I love about the fact, and I love this about you, and you know this, but that you just honor him in such a way, and you're still super mom. Like you don't. This is the other side of losing somebody that frustrates me. Although I have not lost my child, that somehow you're not their mom anymore. What I love about you telling that story is it still says, and I'm still that fucking super mom.
yeah,
I'm
I
still
am.
his super mom. And I love that because you are, even though physically the heartbreak of him not being here, but you're carrying him and sharing him. You're
Yeah,
carrying him and sharing him and still his super mom. So
yeah,
that's great.
yeah. I'm still sharing his
Yeah, you're
story. I'm
living up
still
to that
telling him.
name, girlfriend. You're living up to that name.
Well,
I love
it,
that.
it it is a passion that I woke up with, and I haven't been able to shake it since the morning that I woke up going, okay, my purpose now is to focus on sharing and telling our story. But and most importantly, what I wanted to do was being able to sit in the company of other mothers that were still working through it and give them a safe place to
Oof,
talk, give them an
oof.
environment that I can sit here and listen to whatever crazy you want to throw at me, because chances are I've
Mm,
already done it and I have no judgment on it. So it's a safe
Mm.
place to talk.
And I think that is something that is needed in, like I said, safety in the world in this, the world that we live in general doesn't feel safe, right? But when you're going through it with all of this and what you've been through, and even just compared to my journey, that is not ending in a loss as, with Nehemiah, but there's no safe places. And it's interesting that you can find it on social media. It's interesting.
Yeah, right. But I think a lot of folks, I think what gravitates people to your platform is you are not afraid to tell the ugly, the gritty part of what you've had to walk through. And
Mm,
most people are afraid to share that with people because they don't want the judgment. And you're sitting here saying, "Come over here. This is safe. We're not going to
yeah.
judge because I'm going to lead you. I'm going to share with you what we've gone through so that you feel safe to share your story as well." And I've
Well, and I
seen
think
you,
I think I think telling your story matters. Like no matter where you fall, and listen, it doesn't even have to be about addiction.
right?
We all are of the same condition, and that is the human condition. We are all very flawed. We are all selfish to a certain degree. We are all wanting love. We all want to belong. The human condition is a fucked up thing in a lot of ways, but we all fall under the same category of it. And I think generally speaking, no matter what your story is, my thing is just fucking tell it because somebody out there needs to hear it. And
Yeah.
I think that that's where I finally came to in my life that, yeah, never thought this was going to be it. I never in a million years saw this shit coming. But at the end of the day, I think that the human condition is what we all suffer from, but we all need each other to support because of, if that makes any sense.
No, absolutely. So
I did,
let's,
Selena, I wanted to go back just for one moment. There was a question you asked me about self-care. And I
yeah,
did want to share this real snippet in my life that was, and it wasn't necessarily about saying no, but this is how addiction really makes you, it changes who you are. And this is just, there was a moment where after we found Nehemiah with no breath in his body, that everything changed for us and we had to plan for the next time. If the knock came, because now we know he's overdosing. So I had the opportunity to take my granddaughter. You know the story. It was a year ago in August. I had my opportunity to take my granddaughter to Hawaii for 3 weeks, just her and I, 2 weeks or whatever it was, just her and I. And she's the one that made me a grandma, my Chicky Poo, my Athena. And um, her parents, John and Allie, were gracious enough to allow me to do so. And I had to have a conversation with my husband and with Cheyenne, the mother of Nehemiah's children. And it was the first time that I can honestly say that it was a form of a no, but it was my first. I'm taking care of myself. I don't give a fuck about addiction. You fucking aren't going to take another moment from me. It was the first time I ever stood up for myself during this whole journey of fucking addiction was last year. And I had this conversation with my husband. And I will say this, that this may not, I'm going to hold some people's hands while I say it. Here, hold my hand. I said to my husband, in the event that Nehemiah passes away due to addiction, do not, for any reason, contact me in Hawaii. I don't want to know. Don't you dare tell me. Don't you dare call me. You're going to have to hold that. Said the same thing to Cheyenne, and I said the same thing to my oldest son. In the event, for any reason, Nehemiah passes, do not let me know. He will be nonetheless gone when I get back. I also had the reasons for that where I had a 9-year-old girl with me that
right.
would have had to take care of me. Number two, I wanted that vacation. I wanted every minute, every second. I wanted it to be about her and I, the two Chicky Poos traveling together, Nana and her granddaughter. And at first they were like, I was like, I mean that shit. I will never forgive you. And I look here, the threats I made, don't you dare. I had prayed that that wasn't the case. And I asked God to please. And it was the first time that I refused to allow addiction, the addiction of my son, to come in and control my life. It was the first moment, and I went for that entire time, and never once did it interfere at all with my vacation. It was the first time I said no to addiction affecting me. And I think because of that, and I got a glimpse of what that felt like, I wanted more of it. So I wanted to go back
Yeah.
and say this, that even though that was a really profound thing, if you start taking baby steps and remind yourself that this is not your identity, because for so long, my child's addiction was all that I was. I had to start making a stand. I had to stand up to it. So, anyways, I wanted to share that because that was a
Oh,
really
that's
profound moment
powerful.
of self-care for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, you and I talked so much. I think I shared with you when my husband and I married 4 years ago, and we had gone to Florida to get married, and I had taken Stephen at it just happened to be 3 days before we left to go to Florida to go get married. I took him and he went to a recovery program. He went to a inpatient program. And I remember taking him in and dropping him off and almost begging him, son, I'm going to be in Florida. I need a week. I need to go down there and be
Mm,
able to give my husband and myself an opportunity to go through a wedding ceremony and enjoy each other. Our
mm,
entire our entire, you know, courtship had been through his active addiction, and I said, I need you to do this for me. And he says to me,
mm,
Mom, I got you. I got you, Mom. I got you. And he goes into this program, and 3 days later, we are getting ready to go to the beach to get married. And I get message that he'd left rehab. And
oh,
I was sitting there when my
mm,
hair done and my girlfriend with me, and I'm sitting there in shock. I have no feeling. I have no reaction to this.
mm,
And I'm going, do I
mm,
just hold on? Do I just hold on to this information and not
mm.
ruin the day? Am I the only one that's going to sit with this information? And
Yeah.
I ended up I ended up calling my husband, and we weren't married yet. But I ended up calling him. He was with his friend and you know, getting themselves around. And I said, "Listen," I said, "I need to tell you this." And I said, "I don't know what to do with this." And I shared it with him, and he says, "Well, today we're going to get married, and there's not anything
Mm,
we can do for him today." He says,
mm.
we're gonna walk down the beach and we're gonna get married, and we can worry about him tomorrow." And
Mm.
just simply saying that gave me permission to be okay with whatever happened happened. I can let
That
Stephen
was
go.
leadership. That was
That was
great leadership on
that
his
was
behalf.
leadership.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah,
Mm.
same similar scenario is
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wasn't going to let my wedding day be ruined by it, you know, and I forgave him.
No.
You know, I had to forgive him for that later. And you know,
Mm.
in fact, I don't even think I thought about it again until you and I had that conversation. But
Yeah.
we as mothers dealing with people in active addiction, those are our boundaries. That was a
Yeah.
boundary that you established that day. That was a boundary that I
Yeah.
established, that I wasn't going to let him ruin my wedding day. And we
When
went
I
on
got
about
back, I felt
it.
like the piece that I literally, I said to my husband, I'm so sorry I put you in that position. He said, you know what? I get it. Because he looked at me like I was crazy when I said that to him and I do, I sound like I was being a piece of shit. If my kid dies, don't tell me. That's not what I was saying. I was saying, I need this for me, like you were saying about your wedding day.
You
And
needed to protect
if
your
I can,
peace.
if I can encourage anybody that is new to walking with somebody in active addiction, or you've been on this journey for so long and nothing's changing because nothing's changing, do something different. Really take a look at you. It's just as much about you
Yes,
on this journey as
yes.
it is about the other person. And I think that that gets lost in the message. We are so focused on the person that's got the addiction, the person.
And
Sometimes,
tiptoeing around them. You're part of
correct.
this
Yep, yep,
too.
yep. Yep, 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 yep. And we don't have the right to be hurt, and we don't have the right to be angry, and we don't have the right to be. And so, the big thing is, right? We don't want them to trigger, especially because we're held hostage by death. You know what that feels like, Selena, before you lost him. You're
I
held
do.
hostage by death.
Yeah.
I've, even though Nehemiah's still here, I felt it. Like, I don't want to say this because if he relapses this time, he's really going to do it. And then I'm going to have his death on my plate. Or before Nehemiah was in, Nehemiah has borderline personality disorder. So he went into this big emotional thing or whatever. And I said, Nehemiah, he had left the house because Nehemiah was a boomerang kid. I let him fucking come home too many times. Throw him back in the world, fucker, come back. Throw him in the world, come back. Well, this one time he was out in the alley just losing his just ever loving mind. And I said, hey, I was like, listen, he's telling me, I'm going to kill myself. I said, let me tell you something. What you're not going to do is hold me fucking hostage with that shit. If you're going to kill yourself, that's on you. I can't keep you alive. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to call the cops because we're going to do a welfare check. So then he says to me, I'll never forget it. He said, I'm going to make sure they shoot me right in front of you, whatever, whatever. Man, look here. He took off running because I couldn't get out the gate. I was going to, listen here, that boy nearly caught it. I, I'd have beat the bananas out of that boy that day had I, because what I said is you're not going to emotionally, that's emotional abuse, but they use that.
Yeah.
And that was before the drugs. And, but I remember moments of, but when the drugs came in, because I didn't think that was an emotional meltdown from borderline personality disorder. When the drugs came in, it's really life or death. Threatening me and being emotionally abusive, I'm just going to kill myself and using it as a weapon, that's just a bunch of emotional abuse is what that is. But
Yeah.
when
I
you're
call
talking
it
about
being held
fentanyl,
emotionally hostage. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
You're
yeah,
being held hostage.
100%. But when fentanyl comes in and these opioids, it's literally life or death. It's no longer about, because it's not even intentional. It's not a threat. It's them losing their life to it. And so for me, so many mothers are so held hostage by that, and you just have to find a way to understand the three C's. You can't cure them, you can't control them, and you cannot fix them. Like, you can't save them, you can't control it, you can't fix it, you can't like, you, as much as you want to, if that's going to be the end, that's, you can't control it. You can't.
And
You
I think
can't.
that was always the hardest for me, and I know that has to be, I think all moms feel that way, is the fear of the unknown, the fear of what if. I
Yes.
always, I was in, I was just in a state of um, anticipatory grief that I've
Hmm.
always felt like, tragedy was looming, and I
Yeah.
think a lot,
You're waiting. You're just waiting for it to
yeah,
happen.
yeah, yeah. And so we get into
Yeah.
this we get into this mindset that we need to tiptoe around them. Listen, you cannot control a relapse. You cannot send somebody into relapse. Neither can you pull them out of active addiction. You have no control in this. You're strapped on this roller coaster ride that you didn't ask to be a part of, and you're just
Correct.
along for the ride. You're just along for the ride.
Correct.
And
Correct.
how quick you take those curves or how quick you go up and down them hills is completely up to you. And you
Yeah. And we
surround
don't feel like
yourself.
we have a say so on this journey.
Mhm.
We don't
Yeah.
feel like we can talk and we can cry about everything that we're going through. But what I, especially for mothers, because I speak to a lot of people, but I think my voice goes out a lot to mothers as well. Same with you. You have the right to have a voice. You have the right to be okay some days. You have the right to have joy. I did a video about guilt and stuff like that. And that was a really hard thing, that anytime a little bit of joy would come along, this immediate feeling of betrayal would come along. Like, oh, I'm not supposed to be happy, or, oh, those are all lies. Those are absolutely all lies. You absolutely have the right to be okay sometimes, to just exhale, to breathe, to be like, I can't do it. I can't be involved in the chaos today. You have the right to just take a breath. Because if you drowned with them, nothing you can do. You're both out there. You're both out there. And that was me when his addiction was, that's all. It was all consuming.
Yeah.
All consuming.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Yeah. I
I
never
can,
want that. I never want that again. Ever. I don't, there's not, I never want, and I think that's one of the things at Battlefield that they might really enjoy about me. I'm one of those moms that's already gone through it. Like, yeah, you're good. You can have him. Go ahead. I'm not calling and like, is he doing good? Is he whatever? I'm over here. I'm still over here. Like, I'm not checking on him. What do you do? I don't want that responsibility anymore. Yeah. I don't,
Absolutely.
hey, yeah, no, I don't
I
want it
gotta,
anymore.
I gotta tell you, one of the most powerful moments that ever came over me was, and it happened after he passed away. Stephen was really good about finding my one button, and he would just, don't you tell people about my business. You keep my name out of your mouth, blah blah blah. He was very much narcissistic and controlling about. He didn't want everybody to know the bullshit he was on. After
Yeah.
Stephen, after Stephen passed away, and I came to this realization, literally, oh my God, this was my journey too. I
Yes.
get,
Yes.
I get to talk about what I survived. I
Hmm.
survived this, and I have a
Hmm.
voice in this, and I have an avenue to share our story to help other mothers. I can't help I can't help my son, and I will help anybody else that's in active addiction that wants, support and recovery. I will point them in the
Hmm.
right directions. I'll provide all those resources. But where I can really make an impact is telling my story so other mothers know you are on that journey right now, and you have a voice and you have
Hmm.
a right to share your story, even if it upsets your loved one, because your story is just
Yeah.
as powerful as their story. And I have always said, when they're recovering out loud, you get to love them out loud. You get to recover alongside them
Yeah.
out loud. The family
Yeah.
recovers out loud. I wear a t-shirt
Hmm.
that says, I wear a t-shirt that says, remember out loud, because I
Hmm.
couldn't do the recovery out loud. We didn't get that
Hmm.
opportunity. But by God, I'm going to remember out loud. And he was more than his struggle.
Absolutely. Well, and I think too, I was really fortunate when this all started and they found Nehemiah. I said, "Hey, I don't know how you feel about this." He's like, "No, mom, go ahead." He's like, "You've always been, because I mean, a significant following over on the Booker Face over there, Facebook. I actually just because of dogs and stuff, but he never had a problem with it. And
I love
I
that.
think because, yeah, no, he was always really open. And as a matter of fact, because with the book, all of my series, even if I ever do like a tour where I'm on stage, it'll always be called Hi, It's Me, Mom. Enjoy the shit show. And Nehemiah was like, Mom, I want to write a book that says, Hi, Mom, it's me. And I thought that was brilliant because it's his side of going through it with me and what it was like for him because I don't know what it was like for him. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what that's like to have to live with that. And at some point, I hope that he does that. But I think that having his permission, I was super grateful for. And
Yeah,
even now, people are like, oh my gosh, she's telling all your business. He was like, I don't care.
I
She's
love that.
helping people.
I
Yeah,
have
no, he
so
was
much
always,
respect for him. Oh, I have so much respect for him for
yeah,
being it.
yeah,
Um, respecting you enough to allow you to share your truth. I love
yeah.
that.
And I don't know that listen, I didn't know what my truth was when I started sharing it because I didn't know we were going to go down this shit show. I didn't know it was going to get as bad as it got. I had
Yeah,
no idea. I had no idea what I had signed up for. It's kind of like buckle up, buttercup. I had no idea. But I'm
yeah,
really grateful for the journey now because, listen, there's nothing in this world that I'll ever be ashamed of. Ever. There's not. Girl, look, I don't know if they're going to edit this out, and if they don't, we can all have a good laugh. I was driving down the road one day, hit the brakes because somebody stopped in front of me and I shit my pants. I hit the brakes so hard I shit my pants. I made a video about it and people went wild because I don't care anymore. Like it's like
relatable.
this took this took the cloak off. Like I don't care I shit my pants. I'm old.
Right,
Shit.
right.
It happened. The guy slammed his brake on. I slammed. I was like, oh, happened. And I did a video about that because that's how free I am. Even while he was in active addiction, there was a freedom. I'm no longer ashamed of I've never been ashamed. And I'll say that as loud as I possibly can. I don't like the choices that have been made. Some of those things still not ashamed. No matter how dirty he was, no matter where it didn't, I have never been ashamed of my child. Never, ever. He's mine. I love that boy as much as the day that God gave him to me, and I will to the last breath I take or he takes. And I think for me, the power in that translated into the rest of my life, that there's nothing in this world, again, back to the human condition. I'm so open and so free about life. It's great. And I got that, weirdly enough, because of this journey. It gave me
That
a permission that
what a
I no
gift.
longer need permission to be validated by anybody.
What a gift. What a gift.
Yeah.
All
Yep.
right, so I want you to tell me about your book. I want you to share with this audience, some of them that may have not
Okay.
seen you through social media, they happen to across this
Okay.
podcast. Share about your book.
So there is, I get 1,000,001 questions. The thing about it was, I asked myself 1,000,000 more. And what I tried to do, I think it's 90 questions and answers. It's a pretty simple read. It's not long. It's just a PDF. Well, it's actually an ebook. So when you get the book and you download it, if you don't have the right stuff on your phone, it won't open. But I'm backing everything up with a Word doc, and I'll send that to you when people buy it. It's $9.99. And it's really just questions and answers of everything that I've been through right up until this point, prior to Nehemiah going into recovery. And the reason that I did that, and this had been in the works for quite some time, but the reason that I did it, it was because I get all of these questions and I can't answer them. Um, it's just difficult because people are asking so I really tried to kind of dummy it down, if you will, to the basics of where this journey has taken me. Self-care. How did I know addiction showed up? Just everything that I've been through. And I just kind of did it in a question answer form to make it a lot more simple, and how I dealt with things. In this day and age, you have to be very, very careful. And I'm very, very diligent about that I am not a counselor. I'm not certified. I'm just a mom flying by the seat of her fucking pants. And I always say, just enjoy my shit show. So I wanted to do it in a way that was my experience. And if you can get something from that, great. One of the things that I love about it, and the book is called Hi, It's Me, Mom, Loving Nehemiah, My Son Through Active Addiction. And one of the things I love about it is people that have actually downloaded and gotten it, even them that have not ever dealt with addiction or for whatever, they're just supporting, um, have gotten something out of it. So it's something for everybody in it. But the most important thing I want to say is my son was given a gift from battlefieldaddiction.com. They're a nonprofit. And they paid for my son to go into this recovery house based on my platform. And because of the woman that I am, I believe that when we are received and blessed with such an amazing gift, that I need to make sure this miracle in motion continues for another family. So all of the money from this book is going to a nonprofit. Um, and just a little plug for them, battlefieldaddiction.com. They are a nonprofit. If they are a 501(c), if in the event that you are an absolute business just looking for a tax write-off, they're an amazing, amazing program, and they support the recovery house. There's nothing like it. And they're speaking the stuff that you and I stand on. It's not the old 12-stepper program. It's all of the things, and the whole person is treated. So yeah, so the book is pretty basic, but I think it just needed to be written for people that just are lost. I wish I'd had it when I was in the beginning. Yeah.
Absolutely. I absolutely love the idea of just these are the questions and these are my answers. And because I always say that parents that are facing active addiction. Nobody gives us a manual. Nobody tells us how to manage this, but yet now we're creating that material. Now we're sharing how this is working. Okay, guys, we had a little bit of technical difficulty, so we had to kind of step back and reboot this. And now we're going to kind of step back into our interview. And we were also talking a little bit about parents that are faced with horrible choices. Maybe you got three horrible choices. What's the least of those horrible choices, and then get judged by those same choices. And I think, Steffi, where we kind of left off at is, can you go back and share the story that you just talked about, the creators that you and I both encountered that
Mm. Yeah.
we both found very
Yeah.
distasteful?
So one of the things about me is I'm not scared to I never came on any type of social media platform for a following. It just organically grew to be the size that it is. But Interestingly enough, there was a couple creators that I came along that thought that making fun of meth heads, crackheads was funny. You could get two for the price of one. And I was really offended and I said something. I said it publicly and I said it privately. And then the girl wanted to argue and fuss with me. And I just basically stood my ground that this is not okay. Come to find out there's addiction in her life. And that was, I don't know whether it was her mother or her aunt. I don't know who it was. But anyways, long story short, it still was tasteless because you're talking about my child. And I guess I just have this thing now where it's like I see the world differently now because they're everybody's child. Because I surely never thought it'd be mine. I never thought it'd be mine, but it is. It was. And so the way I choose to live my life is to see them as human beings, not a joke, not a joke. And I will never, ever find anything about the disease of addiction funny. Now, if you want to joke about your people and your mama and your daddy and your, you can do that. Kevin Hart makes fun of his father, who I think has since passed, but about his crack addiction. And there was a lot of laughter and jokes. And that is something that's in within your people. But what you're not going to do is just do that where it's your son, my son, somebody else's child, nobody's defending it. I'm going to say something. She didn't like my response, but at the end of the day, we just agreed to disagree and we went our separate ways. But I will be that voice. I don't care. The other side of that is a creator by the name of Angela Nutt. Angela Nutt is a creator that came up on my FYP page on TikTok, and she started telling a story about she used to hustle and get her money and sell the stuff to crackheads. When she said that, my heart dropped. I was just devastated when she said that. So I reached out privately, sent her this beautiful, beautiful message, said, hey, beautiful, I just want to let you know my son's story, just kind of broke it down to her and said, when you said that, it just made me so sad. And I wanted you to know as a mom, whatever. And I didn't know a lot about her at the time. That very next morning, she messaged me back and she said, please forgive me. It brought me to tears. She said, please forgive me. She's like, I watched that video back and I had such an icky feeling. I too am. And she began to share her story. That day, that very next day, she got up with she said, grab a cup of coffee, and she did a public apology and said to me, this beautiful woman reached out and I duetted it. And she said that could have been my son. And how dare I? And it was it was grace in the most beautiful form that I'd ever seen
Absolutely.
on social media to this day. To this
Wow.
day, the way she handled that was probably, and her name is Angela Nutt. For anybody that's on social media, go follow her.
What
She
ownership.
sells a lot of shit. Yeah, but it was just the representative, like, and she loves God. She loves the Lord, and it was truly her owning the human condition, right? Because
Yeah,
that's what I tell people. We suffer from the human condition, and she just owned it and walked in it, and just it was beautiful. And so I was super grateful for that because it gave me hope that,
I follow her as well, and she's amazing. I
yeah,
enjoy listening to a lot of her content. So
correct.
much deeper respect for her now than before from hearing this
Yeah,
story. Um,
yeah,
I've
she
got a
did. She just owned it. And like,
I've got a couple more
go ahead.
questions for you real quick. If there
Hmm.
was one thing that you could change how society deals with addiction, what would it be?
That I didn't wish people had to die before we cared.
Yeah,
I didn't wish that we had to lose one more person before they cared. And that's just a fact, that we took it serious, that we treated it like COVID.
yeah,
Yeah. That
absolutely.
I really truly wish that I don't have to meet another you, that I don't have to meet another me,
Yeah,
that we took it serious, that we took it serious, that another mother doesn't have to wave a flag because her child passed away from this. I I don't know what more it's going to take, but that is my biggest thing is that what's it going to, how many more does it have to take?
I agree.
We hear them talk about it up on the hill. They had Jelly Roll up on the hill and God love them for doing it. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. It's gotten, yeah, nothing's changed. So
What a
there's
beautiful
that.
answer.
That's truly, thank you.
What a beautiful answer. I um I am blessed to have you in my just in my life because I get to share my journey with you as I'm working through grief And I'm allowed to tell you about my good days and my bad days. I consider you a friend, and you were so welcoming to me when I first stepped onto TikTok. Steffi, I want to tell you thank you so much for sitting with me, but not only just sitting with me in this episode, but also sitting with me in this mess of this grief and this journey. I have come to this platform. I didn't know what I was doing. You were a safe place for me to share my journey. I've learned so much about things I wish I had done differently. You gave me a safe place to admit that maybe I should have done things differently when Stephen was alive. Maybe I should have tried this. Made me be okay with being vulnerable in my own honesty and my own truth. And I know if you're doing that for me after the fact of losing my child, the power that you are providing for other families that are in the trenches of active addiction, um, the most amount of respect I could pay an individual would go to you for that. I
Thank you.
I genuinely appreciate the friendship that we've developed. I haven't shared this, but I will here today. I'm coming to Tacoma because I've asked you to go with me to the crime scene of where Stephen was shot. It's very close to where you live because I know that that is going to be a safe person to be with that day. And I think you'll truly understand the importance for me to be there that day. So I thank you for being there for me.
So welcome. What an honor. And what an honor to share this journey with you. And like I've said, you never know. This app is like online fucking dating. Don't knock it till you try it. You might find yourself a new sister.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
It's just a fact. I mean, it's just a fact. And, the journey all looks so very different for so many of us. And even those that don't or have not had addiction touch their life, one of the most powerful messages I think I ever got was from a mom. She said, "My kids are young, but I know so much more now. And I'm so much more open. And now I see people differently." And I think between you and myself and others that are creators that are just trying to break the stigma, that when we drive out in the world, even if they just look at one human being and remember they're somebody's child, I think makes all the difference in the world, and job well done.
I couldn't have said
Yeah.
it any better myself. That was perfect. We covered a lot of
Yeah.
topics in this episode, and I know that if there's ever a point that you want to get on here and share anything else, you've got an open
Yeah.
invitation anytime you want. And
Yeah.
anything you would like to close with, anything you'd like to share as we're closing this episode.
I just want to publicly say this. First and foremost, thank you for having me. But I do want to close on this. The next time you are in your vehicle or you're coming out of a store and you see somebody that's just laying there or begging for money or whatnot, instead of looking at them like an addict, please remember somehow, some way they got here. They were born to somebody. Their addiction is not the sum of who they are or the life they had prior to addiction. It's a moment in time, but you have the opportunity in that moment in time to make a difference. Just remember, we're all the same and we suffer from the same thing. It's the human condition. And if we would just start to relate to one another as humans again, the power in that, the power in that. So the next time you see that, remember it could be my son, could be Selena's son, could be somebody's child. Just remember that. That's always, will always, always be my message. And in closing, if you're loving somebody through active addiction currently, please take care of yourself. There's nothing more important than that. Take care of yourself, and it's okay to do so. I gave you permission.
There you go.
That's it.
What a message. What a great message. Okay, friends, you can follow Steffi on TikTok at Steffi, Steffy. You're not alone. She's also on Facebook, and I think you also have a YouTube channel, don't you?
I do. Yep. Love them out loud.
There you go. There you go. And go get her book. Those proceeds from her book go to Battle. Tell it for me.
Battlefieldaddiction.com.
Yes.
Battlefieldaddiction.com. Yep.
Yes. And that is to be able to pay back into that program for somebody else's child to go. So that's important that we're out
Yep.
there supporting Battlefield Addiction because they were so gracious to help Steffi and her son out. Um, I want to
Yeah.
thank all of my listeners and everybody that follows me on TikTok that also has crossed over and are watching us on these other platforms. Thank you so much for being here today, as UPS is probably showing up at my house. My dogs
Of
are going
course.
crazy. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. Steffi will be happy to follow along and listen and join in and answering some
Yep.
of those questions. But all my love to you, my friend, and thank you so much for joining us today.
All
Take care.
right. Love you, girl. Bye.